Hi everyone, this is Frank with Teachable University, and this is part two of my previous lecture on creating your dream life. And in this lecture, we're going to continue to dive into Joe Dispenza's book on breaking the habit of being yourself. We're also going to be dissecting Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, or I think we're just going to touch on some concepts which I think are relevant to the topic of creating a dream life. And it's a great book that I've read on a number of occasions, which I recommend that you read. And I'm actually going to create a separate lecture devoted to Awakening the Giant Within, which will probably be my next lecture after this one. So, to follow up on part one of creating your dream life, for many of us, we all desire to live the life that we want. All of us have different dreams and goals and desires. But I think it's safe to assume for many of you listening or watching right now that there's some circumstance in your life that you wish to change. Maybe you're at a job that you don't like, that's unfulfilling. You could be in a relationship that no longer has that fire, that passion, that love. It could be that you could be having some health issues. Maybe you're experiencing depression and anxiety and fear and frustration that life is not going your way. Maybe you've experienced a loss of a loved one, or some other challenge that is really creating a lot of mental anguish for you or creating disappointment. But then on the other side of that, there's this other life that we want to live. There's the dream life that we want to create. There's things that we want to do, businesses or a career that we would like to have, or having a new relationship, or being healthier, improving our finances, helping our community, authentically expressing ourselves. There are things that we would like to do. Or to put it another way, we want to open the door to new possibilities and experiences. But the challenge with this is that in the enemy, I think the biggest challenge to overcome with trying to open these new doors of possibility is the monotonous routine of everyday life, where every day we do the same thing over and over again, from waking up a certain way to drinking from the same coffee mug to taking the same route to work to talking to the same people, gossiping about the same things, watching the same shows. And we rinse and repeat over and over again every single day. And it was Einstein that said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We cannot expect to open new doors of possibility by continuing to do the same things over and over again. So, in order for us to change, then, it requires that we make new decisions and new choices so that we can create the life that we desire, the life that we want. So, to start, this is actually from Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, where he says that the three decisions that control your destiny are your decisions about what to focus on, your decisions about what things mean to you, and then your decisions about what to do to create the results you desire. So let's dissect this for a moment here. So we have the first part, which is your decisions about what to focus on. And for many of us, we tend to focus on the things that we don't want because we use our external circumstances to validate who we think we are, where we think that we're not good enough, that we're not deserving of abundance, that we don't have the intelligence or the ability or the passion to change our life for the better, to achieve desired results in many aspects of our lives. We tend to focus on what we don't want instead of what we should be doing, which is to focus on what we do want. And we're going to dive a little bit more into that in this lecture. But by reshifting our focus, we can then begin to make those new choices and decisions and break the routine and habits that have given us lackluster results. So then the second part here is your decisions about what things mean to you. So I think what Robbins is saying is really the way we ask ourselves questions. We ask ourselves questions every single day. Many of these questions are disempowering, where we ask ourselves, why am I so bad at this? Why is it that I struggle with my finances? Why is it that I can't seem to lose weight? Why is it that nobody wants to talk to me? Or so on and so forth. We ask ourselves disempowering questions that give us disempowering answers that help us shape the meaning of specific events and circumstances in our lives. But when we ask ourselves empowering questions, where what can I learn from this experience? What can I do to improve a certain aspect of my life? What is the best thing about me or best aspect about myself that I can highlight and share with others? When we ask ourselves empowering questions, we thus get empowering answers. And we can begin to reshift our meaning of specific events in our lives and change our perceptions of ourselves and the world around us. And when we can change our perception about the events that occur in our lives, then that's when we can dramatically transform our lives for the better. Because we're no longer bogged down and focusing on negativity, on disempowering thought processes that hold us back, or we continue to live in the past and fear about a worst case scenario in the future. And I believe that's what Robbins is talking about here. And then also in the third part, we have your decisions about what to do to create the results you desire, control your destiny. So what new choices are you going to make today that can lead you to where you want to go? What action steps are you going to take today? And Awaken the Giant Within, Robbins is big on that, on what actions are you going to do right now? What's the one thing you're going to do right now to bring what you want into your reality? Maybe you have to send an email or make that phone call. Or perhaps it's about joining a specific organization or fixing up your resume for applying for a specific job. Or simply taking the time to wake up early in the morning to go work out, to go to the gym, or to skip a meal or eat something healthier to improve your overall health. It's making decisions and taking action, and not to hesitate and don't overthink this process. That can help us create the results that we desire. So then Dispenza, from his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, says that only when subjects held both heightened emotions and clear objectives in alignment were they able to produce the intended effect or desired result. An intentional thought needs an energizer, a catalyst, and that energy is an elevated emotion, heart and mind working together, feelings and thoughts unified into a state of being. If a state of being can wind and unwind strands of DNA in 2 minutes, what does that say about our ability to create reality? So when Dispenza here is talking about heightened emotions and clear objectives, and I think let's just go back quickly to the 3 decisions that control our destiny. Your decision about what to focus on. When you talk about heightened emotions, and to help improve our focus, then we want to begin to cultivate the emotions of what it would feel like as if what we want is possible, whether it's to own a profitable business, to be in a loving relationship, to improve our health, perhaps to travel to a certain destination or destinations. It could be trying to own certain material possessions, maybe owning a new home, or earning a certain amount of money. So it's really about cultivating and thinking about what it would feel like as if what we want is actually possible, or better yet, what if what we want is already here in the present moment now? In contemplating these different circumstances within the studio of our own mind in great detail. So then to go back here to Dispenza's quote, an intentional thought needs an energizer, a catalyst, and that energy is an elevated emotion. So what I think Dispenza is saying here, to create our reality, you can't just intellectualize this process. What I mean by that, it goes beyond just thinking about what you want. You want to make this a physical process as well, or really the mind-body connection, where the mind and body are working as one, where you begin to feel physically that what you want is here now. Imagine that for a moment. Think about something that you want, and think about for a moment, and maybe meditate on it. Maybe you could pause this lecture for a moment and just spend a couple minutes doing this, where you really think about and feel that what you want is here now. What would that really feel like physically? Feel the sensations. How does your heart beat? Maybe you get a tingling sensation. You feel light. You feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. There's a physical part of this that is extremely important, where heart and mind are working together, where there's no inner resistance, that You feel your feelings and your thoughts are unified into a state of being where you're firing on all cylinders. And we've talked about this with being in states of flow, where you're so immersed in the present moment that you don't need anything else outside of you because what you want is already here now. And ultimately, it's to feel a certain way. And Tony Robbins says in his book, "And Awaken the Giant Within," that when you change your state, you change your life. We want to achieve certain goals because of the state that we get in when we achieve that goal. We want to feel a certain way. So why wait? And instead have that intention, that energizer, that feeling of what you want is already here now. You have everything you need right now at this moment to create the reality that you want. And that starts with emotion. So Dispenza says, simply put, most of our addicted to the problems and conditions of our lives that produce stress. No matter whether we're in a bad job or in a bad relationship, we hold our troubles close to us because they help us reinforce who we are as a somebody. They feed our addictions to low frequency emotions. So all of us experience feelings and emotions every single day, but most of these feelings are feelings of perhaps dread, boredom, anxiety, fear, worry, and a host of other negative emotions and feelings. And these feelings come about because of our addiction to our problems and the conditions that produce the very stress in our lives. We wake up in the morning and maybe we meditate and we contemplate a better future, but then when we go about our day, everything in our environment reminds us that what we want is not possible. Or to put it another way, there's nothing to validate that what we want is possible in our lives. So we become addicted to our circumstances. And what Dispenza and what Robbins and what other experts and personal growth coaches and mentors discuss and advocate is that we do not become influenced or seduced by our external environment, that we focus on within, that to change our external environment, it starts from focusing and changing what's going on within our own minds. And to break that addiction of our problems and to begin to focus. And we talk about the decisions that can change our destiny by focusing on what it is that we want, by asking ourselves empowering questions, by changing the way we communicate with ourselves, by changing our vocabulary even, by focusing on words like how we're unstoppable, abundant, in love with life, how we're genius, we're intelligent, we're creative. By changing our vocabulary and changing the words and phrases that we use to communicate with ourselves and others, we can begin to make these new decisions and new connections within our own minds that over time can subconsciously change the way we think and feel. Where we can develop new habits that they become so ingrained in our personality, we don't have to think about it anymore. And that's when we can break some of these addictions to our problems in our own lives. So change is a choice instead of a reaction. It seems that human nature is such that we balk at changing until things get really bad and we're so uncomfortable that we can no longer go on with business as usual. This is as true for an individual as it is for society. We wait for crisis, trauma, loss, disease, and tragedy before we get down to looking at who we are, what we are doing, how we are living, what we are feeling, and what to believe or know in order to embrace true change. Often it takes a worst case scenario for us to begin making changes to support our family, relationships, career, health, etc. So, and this often happens, that usually what is the motivator or catalyst for change for many of us is something traumatic happens in our lives. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be a health scare. It could be us going out of business. Maybe we have a startup or a business that went bankrupt. Maybe we got fired, we got let go, laid off. A relationship ended that hurt us badly. We wait for the worst case scenario or something traumatic to happen in our lives in order for us to change. And as I said before, why wait? To create our dream life, it means being proactive. It means being deliberate and intentional of what it is that we want to create and the kind of life that we want to create for ourselves and others. By waiting for something outside of us to motivate us to change, we only put ourselves in a much more difficult situation. When you're proactive and you're deliberate with how you want to live, you can make new choices and decisions that perhaps can help mitigate some of these worst case scenarios from occurring. Or if something traumatic happens in your life, you'll be in a much better position to overcome it. So it is being proactive and not waiting to be happy, to feel abundant, to feel in love, to be a genius, but to live it right now. And cultivating these feelings and emotions that can help get us there. And there's a neurological aspect of this. You can't just intellectualize this process and think about it. You have to live it out and feel it through your mind and as well as your body. And embracing both the mind and body as one. So, to quote Tony Robbins from his book, Awaken the Giant Within, enjoy making decisions. You must know that in any moment, a decision you can make can change the course of your life forever. The very next person you stand behind in line or sit next to on an airplane, the very next phone call you make or receive, the very next movie you see or book you read or page you turn could be the one single thing that causes the floodgates to open and all the things that you've been waiting for to fall into place. If you really want your life to be passionate, you need to live with this attitude of expectancy. And that word really stands out, expectancy. For many of us, and I'm guilty of this, we spend our lives expecting the worst, or at the very least, expecting outcomes and events in our lives that maybe don't really matter all that much, where we just expect to get by. But to create our dream life, we must have an attitude of positive expectancy, where we anticipate and expect amazing things to happen in our lives any moment of any day. Or in fact, right now as you're watching this lecture, your life can change forever right now by just making just one small decision, one phone call, one listening of a lecture like this one, or maybe having a conversation with someone who's a mentor or friend of yours has given you good advice. Or maybe just coming to a realization that just came out of nowhere, where you've realized that you have to take this action or think and act in a certain way that you never thought of before. Any moment could be a moment that can change your life forever and can change it for the better. But it is about making decisions and making new choices and not get stuck in that monotonous routine, as I said before, that we all get bogged down into at times. And I'm guilty of this as well. But making decisions and sticking with them. And again, and I said before, I'm guilty of this, that sometimes we get into situations or states where we are indecisive about what it is that we want to do. But the important thing here is not to be afraid of making the wrong choice. But when you make enough decisions and you stick with them, and you make decisions without being hesitant so much, you get really good at making these decisions. And then at that point, that's when you can enter these states of flow much more often, because you're not facing that in total resistance as much anymore. You're not second guessing your abilities and your decisions. You're just making decisions that you feel are right. Now, this doesn't mean being reckless or putting yourself in dangerous situations. Obviously, there's times, of course, when you want to think about and contemplate what you want to do. But ultimately, there's a time for thinking, but then there's a time for action. And making decisions and not being afraid of making those decisions. So why not make cheerfulness, outrageousness, playfulness a new priority for yourself? Make feeling good your expectation. You don't have to have a reason to feel good. You're alive. You can feel good for no reason at all. Again, the word expectation really comes out and stands out to me. So what Robbins is saying is that at any moment, not only can we change our lives for the better, they can change forever, but at this very moment, you can decide to feel good. You can decide to feel alive and feel happy and outrageous and abundant. You can live and be and do what it is that you would like to do. You can feel any way you like right now. Now, this may seem a little bit hard to believe at first, because so many of us go through the same emotions day in and day out. And this takes practice to make these new decisions and new choices that can help us change our state. But this is certainly possible. But it all goes back to our intention of how we intend to live our lives. And we can decide right now, regardless of, no matter what our circumstances are, we can feel joyful, we can feel happy and playful and creative and abundant. but it is about the intention and the feeling that we decide to cultivate within our own minds that can help us feel this way. As I've said before, and what Robbins is saying, it's about making those decisions. So your brain, as Robbins says, can't tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you actually experience. So in contemplating your horizons and creating your dream life, and this is where meditation and journaling, I think, is so important. You want to take the time to really imagine the life that you want to live right now. As Neville says, feeling is a secret. Feeling that what you want is already here. Subconsciously, your mind does not know the difference between what is real or not. So why not use that to your advantage? How often do we contemplate worst case scenarios that create mental distress about events that have never happened? They are a figment of our imagination. Or we think about events that have occurred so long ago that they're no longer relevant in our lives, but yet they still, again, create this mental distress. So why not use this aspect of our mind to our advantage, where we begin to contemplate and imagine a desired outcome or desired life that we want to live? Imagine as if what you want is already here now. And by doing so, then, you already begin to reshift your focus to better horizons. You can begin then to make new decisions and new choices that can help move you in the direction of where you want to go. So any pattern of emotion or behavior that is continually reinforced will become an automatic and conditioned response. Anything we fail to reinforce will eventually dissipate. So in conclusion here, in order for us to change our behaviors, they have to be reinforced, and that's through repetition. Any behavior or habits that we have in our personality have been ingrained in our personality because of repetition or repetitive behavior. Think about when you learn how to drive a car. In the beginning, when you first learned how to drive, you were probably not very good at it because you were learning all the rules and regulations of the road and how to drive the car, how to parallel park, or how to change lanes, and so on and so forth. But then eventually, over time, through repetition and practice, it became second nature. Athletes go through this as well, where through practice over time, eventually athletes perform in such a way where it becomes second nature. They don't have to think about it. It reminds me of when I was a baseball hitting instructor, where we taught our players to practice in such a way where they practice so much that when they're out in the batter's box, they're not thinking about how they're going to perform. They already know what they have to do. Because when you tend to overthink, it impairs your decision-making abilities. So in order for us to change these behaviors, in order for us to create the life that we want, it means that we have to reinforce positive behaviors and try to not reinforce negative behaviors. And that's not easy. That means taking inventory of what we're doing right in our lives, but also what we're doing wrong. And then also, what are the consequences of what would happen if we didn't change? What would we miss out on? How would we let our lives just go by without us changing for the better? And also, what would be the positive aspects of what would happen if we did change for the better? What's all the good that we can experience, all the new experiences and opportunities that we can have, how much joy we can have in our lives, new financial opportunities, relationships, etc. But it's about controlling our emotions, no matter what our circumstances are, and being, as I said many times, being deliberate about our behavior, being aware of it, and taking the time every day to make new choices and decisions that can move us to where we want to go. And by reinforcing these positive behaviors, by being much more deliberate with the kind of life that we want to live, that's when we can make profound change and create the life that we want. I really appreciate you watching this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like button as well. And I'll see you next class. Take care.